I think. Good morning, everybody. We are politically speaking today, Thursday, June 24th, 2021. I'm Ben Dryden, and as always, I'm joined by the stars of the show, former Wisconsin Assembly Representative Adam Jarchow and former Wisconsin Senator Patty Schachner. If you're unfamiliar with the show, it's quite simple. Here's how it works. The day before we go live, both Adam and Patty send me 3 topics each that they would like to discuss for a total of 6 topics. Then, when their topic is brought up, they will have the floor first to share their views and opinions, followed by the other person to share their views and if they agree or disagree with the other. We then move on to the next topic, so on and so forth, with each discussion about 5 minutes long. Today, we actually have 7 topics because apparently rules don't apply to Adam. He sent 4. And those are the budget, local gun sanctuary resolutions, the $3.4 billion tax cut proposal, wolves, Clam Falls Flowage, poverty in communities, and education funding. A special thank you to our Politically Speaking show sponsor, Kirkpatrick Law Offices. Matthew Kirkpatrick provides experienced, professional, efficient, and effective representation in criminal defense, collections, and other legal areas. For more information, you can find Kirkpatrick Law Offices on Facebook or simply go to mzklawyer.com. That's mzklawyer.com. On a personal note, Jerusha and I have been praying for Matt as he recently lost his father. I don't know if either of you know Matt very well, and if anyone that's listening knows him, knows that he's a big dude, but he's got an even bigger heart. Our condolences are being sent to Matt. Keep up, brother. We're thinking about you. And we have our first ever birthday wish that was sent to us. A fan of the show, and I want to wish happy birthday to Shabana Lundeen. Shabana is a deputy county clerk in Polk County and is celebrating her birthday tomorrow. So happy birthday, Shabana. All right, let's welcome in our stars. Adam, we'll start with you. Good morning. How are you, sir?
I am awesome. How are you, Ben?
I'm great because this is the only show that I do that I don't get hate mail from. So I love it. So maybe you guys should do better so I get more hate mail because it's really bizarre. Every other show I get tons of hate mail, but not this one. Oh.
Oh,
What's new with you, Adam?
No, well,
Adam, you there?
Oh, sorry. I thought Patty was going to speak. Yeah, no, I'm nothing. Just, it's summer, working, spending time on the lake with the kids, doing family, dad stuff, having friends over, cooking out, doing good old-fashioned red-blooded American stuff.
Yeah, boy. Patty, good morning. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you, and good to see you guys again.
Yeah.
And you know what? My condolences out to Mr. Kirkpatrick. The loss of a parent, no matter what the age, is heartbreaking,
Yeah.
and it's sad, and it always just reminds us all on how lucky and blessed we are to have our parents in our lives. So thinking of him, and happy birthday to Shabana.
Yeah, do you know, because that's, over in Polk County, and I don't, get over there very much, so I don't know her personally. Have either of you ever met her? Do you know of her?
I do not, but I'm sure if I would meet her, I would remember her because that name is so unique.
Sure.
So I look forward to meeting her someday.
Nice. Adam, how about you?
I do know her.
Oh.
Yeah, I do know her. She's awesome. A credit to Polk County. Great family, wonderful person, hard worker. Just the kind of person that I'm really proud to see in our local government.
All right, enough of the mushy stuff.
So happy birthday, Shabana. Patty's going to sing to you later.
Yeah, I'd pay for that.
Lucky her.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on to our first topic today, which is, Adam, this was the topic that you wanted to discuss, so you go first. Is the budget good or bad? And you may want to kind of give a little backstory there on what this is about in terms of the budget, but is the budget good or bad? Adam, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so as probably some of the listeners know, Wisconsin does what's called a biennial budget. So our budget process happens every 2 years, and it funds our government in the state of Wisconsin for 2 full years. So it starts off with the governor's budget in February, goes through the Joint Finance Committee, and then from the finance committee into the legislature, and then back to the governor to sign, veto, or sign in part and line item veto. So it's gotten through the joint finance committee process last week, which means in effect it's locked in. The legislature will vote on whatever budget the joint finance committee passes. So my understanding is the legislature is going to vote on the full budget next week. And then off to Governor Evers. Nobody knows whether he'll sign the budget, veto the budget, or sign it and veto it in part.
Got it.
So they stripped out like everything out of Governor Evers' budget, all of the policy stuff, everything. And the reason was simple, right? Because our governor has the strongest line item veto in the country. And so every time you have an actual word, like one word, he can veto that one word, and change the meaning, or he can veto a sentence out and change the meaning. And so they worked really hard, the finance committee, to just have, kind of numbers and not policy items. And so I was watching last week, at the end of the budget process, there's usually this wrap-up motion that incorporates all kinds of wish list policy items of legislators. And it's the controversial stuff that you couldn't get passed in a standalone bill, right? So they stick this in at the end. It's usually in the middle of the night, and all the Capitol reporters love it because it's juicy, good stuff.
Sure.
And Pat Marley from the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel tweeted last week, most boring 999 motion ever, because there was nothing. So essentially, this budget is just numbers, and that's all we're talking about then is what we're funding. And I told a friend of mine, I voted against one of Governor Walker's budgets because I thought it spent too much and didn't cut taxes enough. This budget is a really good budget. I think it spends appropriately. We're flush with cash. We have a huge surplus in addition to the federal funding that's been coming in. I think they prioritized well. We'll talk about the tax cut that they passed through the finance committee last week in a later segment, but it is a generational kind of tax cut. So I'm really proud of what they did. And most importantly, Patty Shockner probably remembers the old state representative from up in the Polk County area named Bob Duholm. And he used to say, millions for Milwaukee and pennies for Polk. And so anytime that we could suck a little money out of southeastern Wisconsin up into northern Wisconsin,
sure,
it was a good deal. And in this budget, Rob and the state representative Gabe were able to put some funding in to save a dam in the northern part of Polk County. And it's a big deal when you can get representatives from the southeastern part of the state to actually send money to us as opposed to sucking money out of northern Wisconsin. So I like the budget. I don't know if Tony Evers will sign it. I'm really curious to hear what Patty thinks about it, whether he'll sign it or do what he did last time, which is sign it and then have some line item vetoes.
Sure. All right. So then, Patty, your thoughts? Is this a good budget or a bad budget? Do you agree with Adam or not?
Well, I think it's a okay budget. I think there's some problems and always were room for improvement. I think Adam's right on, the budget is more about wordsmithing and adjectives and nouns and verbs. And if you didn't pay attention in English class, then you're screwed in the budget writing process in Wisconsin. Because it's like, God. But, I think there's, we are flush with cash. There is opportunity to make some really good investments. I think the JFC missed some opportunities, and the Clam Falls Flowage is one of those things that, it's nice to see that there is a possibility that funding will come up in this area. When it comes to education and a lot of that thing, I think those topics, there's always room for more investment. So I don't know what the governor is going to do. I don't know if he's going to go line item or if he is going to veto the whole thing and make everybody come back. I really don't know. I think at this point, seeing there's so much money in the surplus, it is an opportunity to really make some once in a lifetime investments. Are we going to do it? I'm not sure. I mean, yeah. I don't know. So I think it's like a soap opera. We're just going to see what the next episode's going to be like, because right. It's not done.
So you're saying that if we have that surplus, let's use some of it.
that's what I would do
Sure.
in that. But I think there's plenty of room for investments in some much needed services around, and especially in this part of the state.
Yeah. You remind me of my wife. I save up finally, over a year and put every little penny away, and I save some. She's like, hey, we got money. We should spend it. Like, no, don't spend it. But at the same time, I agree with you, though. Like, there is a moment where it's okay. We can do more. We're able to do more. But I think like most things, as you both probably know, what do we do with it? Democrats would probably want to put it in one spot, and Republicans probably want to put it in a different spot. And hopefully they come to a compromise. It'll be interesting. Adam, when do you think this will be? Evers will make a decision on this. Are we talking end of this week, next week, couple weeks, what?
I think probably in 2 weeks, by the 4th of July. My understanding is the full legislature gets the budget in the floors of their respective chambers next week, midweek. And so then it will go to him, and technically speaking, our budget expires at the end of June because our cycle runs from July 1st for 2 full years. But unlike a lot of states, including Minnesota, we don't have a government shutdown if we don't have a new budget in place on time. The funding just continues based on the last budget. So it's kind of a base budget. So in theory, he could, the governor could take a week or two. But my guess is his staff, they know what's going to be in there, and they've known for a week now. So they're going through it, and they're let's face it, what they're making is an election year political calculation. Is it better politics to veto the whole budget? Is it better politics to sign the budget with some line item vetoes? What is the best politics for his reelection chances? And that, I think that is going to drive the process on his decision.
Patty, tell me it ain't so. Please tell me that the people that are making these decisions has nothing to do with politics. It should be, right? It should be about the citizens of Wisconsin. It shouldn't be, it's a political year. That's ridiculous. However, I don't know. You were in the Senate for a while. Do you agree with Adam? Does that play a part of this?
That's the BS part about the whole process, and especially since you have elections every 2 years. It's always about reelection. It's really never about what's best for the people. It's always about what am I going to do that I can put on the campaign poster to make me look better, and that so I can win and keep my government funded insurance and keep all my benefits because I want to have what you can't have, so I have to make sure that I do it. So I'm going to send you these little nuggets and then tell you guys to go back to work. So, yeah.
So cynical, Patty. So cynical.
All right. With that said, we're moving on to the next topic. Patty, this one, we'll start with you. This is one that you had asked to talk about. And the question is, what is the reasoning for local gun sanctuary resolutions? Patty, you're up.
Yeah, well, that just came up in St. Joe Township around here got a lot of people's undies in a bundle. So I looked into it a little more. I mean, I have my conceal and carry. I have guns. I am a huge proponent in gun responsibility, gun ownership and responsibility for safety and all that there. So I mean, we have the constitutional right to have guns. I don't understand what this is all about and what are the negative ramifications that can come from this. I've been watching what went on in Trempealeau County and Buffalo County, and now I know the state legislature has passed stuff. So what does it mean? I'm not a lawyer. What does it mean? Mm-hmm. There are some people that will say, this means that law enforcement can't come in if you're a domestic abuser. There's other people that say that, law enforcement is not going to have anything to do with guns. I don't know. And it's like, is this a wise decision? Does it make sense? Or is it just fluff? Is it just blowing steam? And does it matter? So that's why I asked that question.
Okay. Well, if only we had a lawyer on the show. Oh, wait a minute. We do.
I know. That's why I
asked. So, Adam, what are your thoughts on that?
I love them. I think they're fantastic. But Patty's right. It's a little bit of all the above, I think. So one, it's a statement, right? So Polk County passed a sanctuary gun resolution about a year ago, and I was firmly in favor of it. It's a statement that as a community, we believe strongly in the Second Amendment. We believe in protecting the Second Amendment, and the county board believes that it is inappropriate to use county resources to enforce gun laws that are unconstitutional. And really, what's happening is when we see wacko ideas out of Washington, D.C. related to guns from Patty's party and Patty's buddies like AOC, then we, have to kind of push back. And that's what these resolutions do. So the rural communities are pushing back. And, from an enforceability standpoint, the sheriff is a constitutional officer, right, in our Wisconsin Constitution. And his job under the Wisconsin Constitution is to enforce the law. But within that, as we saw during some of the COVID stuff, they determine whether some of those laws are legal or constitutional and prioritize enforcement, right? So I think what this would do in a county like Polk is would give Sheriff Walk, for example, the opportunity, if there was some nutty, gun grabbing law out of DC, to say, well, I, Sheriff Walk, am not going to be involved in enforcing that law. If you people in DC think that's such a great law, then go ahead and send the FBI up here to enforce it. But I'm not going to be involved in it. We're not going to spend Polk County resources to violate the constitutional rights of Polk County residents. And I think that's a great statement. And I think that's the wonderful thing about our system, whether you like it or not with respect to this particular item. This federalist system that we have, where we have checks and balances and layers of government, and somebody as local as the local elected sheriff can thwart the will of members of Congress in DC. That is a great push and pull tug system that we have, and I absolutely love it. I think the framers were brilliant to set up a system with so many different levers of power, so that none of them is aggregated in one place, like the president of Washington D.C.
Sure. Patty, response to that?
So then there is truth to what the Trempealeau County Board said, that if they had a board that all went to, they had a election process that elected everybody that was pro marijuana, that they could literally make them a marijuana sanctuary county, and there would be nothing law enforcement could do about it.
Well, Patty, I'm a libertarian, and I saw a meme the other day that I really liked. It was from Paul. I don't know how you say his name. He owns Agave down in Hudson, Paul Rohde or Road or something. And he's got a meme, Rohde. He's got a picture of I support the Second Amendment so that my gay friends can smoke their marijuana or protect their marijuana with their guns. I thought I agree with everything he just said. I agree with. On the marijuana thing in Trempealeau County, I think they're right and wrong, right? So again, the sheriff is not bound by what a county board does. It sort of determines, what the elected officials think. So even if the county said, "Oh, hey, we're going to be a marijuana sanctuary," the sheriff can still use the sheriff's powers to enforce the marijuana laws, and the same thing with the gun laws. Now, could he spend county resources on that if there was a resolution or a budget amendment that said no county resources can go to the sheriff's department for this particular need? No, I don't think he could. I think that would cause a serious issue. I think then he would be in violation of whatever their funding mechanism would be.
I did not know that.
So it's so confusing. It's so confusing, and it's like it's a statement, but there is ramifications of that statement. And I mean, I just look at someone who works almost all the time with gun violence. The first time I ever saw someone shot was that as an EMT. And over the years, I have, bared witness to so much gun violence locally that it does. It's not a liberal thing. It's just that I see it. Law enforcement sees it. We see it all the time, and we know that, especially during COVID, that gun sales just went through. And a lot of people who bought guns never had guns before, probably never ever thought they would own a gun. So we know that gun violence, especially around here, will continue, but our gun violence looks different than
Yeah.
urban gun violence. We still have it. And the impact that it has locally, especially if people aren't responsible gun owners and put their guns away and lock their guns up and do all that there stuff, there are laws on the books that deal with that. And does that mean if we have this sanctuary stuff that there's going to be an expectation? And Sheriff Walk and I had a conversation about this when I was in the Senate, and he said one of the problems was that a lot of the gun laws that are on the books are not enforced. So with this, does this mean there is going to be an expectation to enforce those laws that are already on the books or not? So I just kind of feel like it's going to cause more problem than good.
It reminds me of,
I'm not sure.
All of these things where it's, what does the sheriff do in these situations? It reminds me of the masking order, right? Mm-hmm. I don't understand why the governor, I was fine with it. That's safer at home, whatever. That's fine. Unfortunately, what you were saying earlier, that everything is politics, but I was thinking that he's doing the right thing. But I was surprised that he didn't talk to all law enforcement, because they're the ones, now this is a mandate. Wait, so do we enforce? How do we do this? I thought that was interesting. Why wouldn't you talk to the people that are going to be fielding all of these calls, and what are they supposed to do? That's interesting. That's a topic for another time. Let's move on to the next one here, and this one is from Adam, and that is the $3.4 billion tax cut proposed by Republicans good? Adam?
So we're one of the highest tax states in the country,
Nice.
And we have some of the worst weather in the country.
Yes.
That is not a good combination for long-term economic growth. So if you look at the country and see where people are moving and where economic growth is happening, they're moving to low tax, warm weather states. So I've been saying this for a long time. I like living here. I moved back here from Florida. I'm not dissing Wisconsin. All I'm saying is there's a lot of people who don't particularly love winter, particularly when they get older, right? So our job as policymakers is to recognize that reality and try to figure out, how do we keep these people in Wisconsin? How do we get them to stop going to Florida and Texas and other sort of low tax states? Because when they do that, when they leave our state, they take their economic activity with them and they take their tax revenue with them. So what I've said for a long time is we have to be the most competitive state in the upper Midwest from tax and regulatory policy to keep these people here. And this $3.4 billion tax cut goes a very long way to moving us in the right direction. It lowers our rates within our brackets by like an entire percent. It gets rid of the stupid personal property tax finally, not your real estate taxes, but if you buy something and if you're a small business and you happen to have a bunch of inventory or furniture, fixtures, equipment, every year you have to file a report and pay some personal property tax on it. It's burdensome. It's stupid. We should get rid of it. I think there's bipartisan support to get rid of it. Most states have gotten rid of it, and that's part of this package. So this is one of those sort of generational tax reforms that I think will do us a lot of good for keeping people in Wisconsin and keeping them from taking their businesses and their economic opportunity to Florida and Texas.
Mm-hmm. Patty, same question. Is the $3.4 billion tax cut proposed by Republicans good? And do you agree with Adam?
Well, I think, yes, we have to have people stay here in Wisconsin. That has to be part of our goal for economic growth. Not only do we want young people who are starting out here to have financial opportunities that will help them stay here, but we need the old geezers to stay here too.
Well put. Oh, where'd she go? And I guess Facebook didn't like that comment and they just banned her.
Yeah, Zuckerberg banned her for saying geezer, huh?
I think so. Okay,
now
so
what do we do? Make fun? Do we make fun of her?
Totally, we're going to. Yes. Well, I'm sure she's gonna, probably try to sign back in here in a minute. So, I didn't realize that part of this. So, are other people thinking about this? The people that are making these policies, is that really the direction they were going? Let's try to keep people here. Or is this, as you had said earlier, it's just to score points? So they're scoring points with probably the Republicans, right? Their own people that vote for them. Is there anything in there? Are there the Democrats, the other side, looking at this going, it's actually pretty good too? Now, that would be a question I'd ask Patty if she was here, but she's not on right now.
I think a little bit of both. I think there is Democrat support for getting rid of the personal property tax. There probably is Democrat support because this is across the brackets. So on the lower brackets, Democrats always support those kind of tax cuts. What they get worked up about is on the higher end brackets with the higher earners, when you cut that by 1%, of course, those higher earners that are paying the lion's share of the taxes also get the lion's share of the tax cut. So they always take the position that you're giving the tax cuts to the rich. And you're giving the tax cut to the people that actually pay taxes is what's happening. And so I think there's a little bit of that, but I was talking to a small business owner client yesterday, and he told me about a conversation that he had with some politicians where he said, the problem with all of you people is that you think in 2-year terms, and you're constantly thinking about next year and the year after, and you never think about 10 years from now. And that's what we need to think about is 10 years from now. And I don't disagree with him. I think he's right. I think politicians are always guilty of thinking in 2-year cycles, 4-year cycles, as opposed to a 10 or 20-year planning cycle. And I think that this is actually some long-term planning. Is there political benefits for Republicans? Sure, of course. Is there a downside to Governor Evers electorally if he vetoes this out of the budget? Does a line item veto? Yeah. The Republicans are going to run against him and say that he vetoed a tax cut that would have put $1,200 in the pocket of your average Wisconsinite. So I think there's politics in everything, but I also think from a long term, reducing the tax in this state is so very important.
Yeah. Well, you had said that a lot of them look at 2 years, right? That's it, and not 10. Is this one of those situations that we look at that any individual in that position? What's the saying? Do you hate the player or hate the game? Right? Mm-hmm. That's just the way that it works, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, I think, and it's unfortunate. But there are people of goodwill. Patty and I spend time. Oh, she's back. She's back.
Oh my God! That technology.
Yeah. Sorry, we were talking about. I don't remember what we were talking about. Oh yeah, the budget. We kind of just kept on that a little bit more, talking about that politicians sometimes look at 2 years ahead and not 10 years ahead. That's what we were discussing.
Yeah. Yeah. But what I was saying was the generational wealth that we have when our folks leave the state, it's hard to get that back. So when we're thinking about economic development and how we're going to keep people, young people here in Wisconsin, we do have to think 10 and 15 years ahead of time on what kind of opportunities are going to be there for them. Because right now, and especially, here's a prime example, without good access to internet and a lot of these services, they're going to places where they have access to that.
Yeah.
But we have to be competitive.
You're watching Politically Speaking with Adam and Patty, presented by Kirkpatrick Law Offices. Matthew Kirkpatrick provides experienced, professional, efficient, and effective representation in criminal defense, collections, and other legal areas. For more information, you can find Kirkpatrick Law Offices on Facebook or simply go to mzklawyer.com, mzklawyer.com. So we are up to our next topic. Patty, you are up. This is the question for you. Should taxpayers continue to pay for hounds killed by wolves?
So the reason I asked that question, of course, the whole hounds and wolves and bears is a really big topic, especially in northern Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. And myself, I'm a bear hunter, and full disclosure, we did have a hound that was killed by wolves. So we did, reap the benefit of taxpayers paying for a hound that died because it was killed by wolves. As we all evolve, it's kind of like the people who don't want to pay for education because they don't have kids in school. There are people that no longer hunt that don't want to pay for dogs because they no longer do it. So Again, help me understand why this is such a relevant and needed sort of insurance policy when you think about all the other things that recreational things that we do, whether it's horseback riding or anything else. There's not that kind of policy in the book. So why is this a policy? Why is it needed? And why are we asking all taxpayers to pay for a hobby than that? So again, I was a bear hunter, and it was a benefit that we had, but all these years later, I wonder if it's still needed. Adam,
Sure.
what do you think?
Perfect. Adam? I'm just going to step out. I'll let Patty run. She's doing great.
So I'll make Patty a deal. If we can get rid of every single wolf in this state and the wolf reintroduction program that began in the 80s, then I think every user group, hunters, farmers, ag, ranchers, they will all agree to get rid of the depredation payments. But that was the deal that was made, that we're going to bring wolves back. Nobody wanted them. There was a reason that the ranchers killed them off in the first place, because they're awful, terrible things that should be killed off. And at the least, they should be managed. But when you have wolves, you're going to have some depredation. They kill calves, they kill cattle, they kill sheep, and yes, they kill some hunting hounds. And that was the deal that was made a long time ago, that if we bring wolves back and they kill one of your animals, whether it's a dog or cattle or what have you, then you're going to get compensated for that. So I think we need to stick to that deal so long as we keep having these stupid wolves in this state. If we want to get rid of the wolves, then we can certainly get rid of the depredation payments.
Patty?
Do you honestly think we'll ever get rid of wolves? Honestly.
No, I think that once we get down, so we have a target in Wisconsin. Historically, the deal was to have 300 or 400 wolves was kind of the target population goal. We're at about double or triple that, depending on what count you believe right now. And that's why we're having the wolf season. That's why even during the Obama administration, supported by Tammy Baldwin, they came off the endangered species list. A judge put them back on, and then during the Trump administration, they went back off again, and that's how we had the season this spring. But I don't think we'll ever get rid of them, because I think they would get relisted on the endangered species list if you got down below kind of a target population goal of 300-400 or something.
Sure.
I believe that the depredation payments are here to stay, because I suspect that some number of wolves are here to stay.
Sure.
Yeah, it's kind of like every time we introduce a type of wild, turkeys, prime example. Mm-hmm. Turkeys everywhere now, and doing all kinds of damage to crops and all this. It's just an interesting thing to see. As we grow as a society, and then we try to reintroduce wildlife that was here when there was no people living in those areas, and then we wonder why we have the problems that we have with the wildlife that we reintroduce. Mm-hmm. It just is. It's like watching Lion King. The circle of life just keeps going on and on and on, and it just the problem never goes away.
Yeah. Listen, this was a question that was up there from Kevin. If there is a wolf season, I believe that the benefit of a hound killed by wolves goes away. Is that true? Do either of you know the answer to that?
I don't know.
No. Sorry, Kevin. Google it. We don't have the answer. Our panel is not informed on that particular topic. Okay, so the next question, or the next topic here, and this one is now for Adam. Is it a good thing that the funding for the Clam Falls Flowage is in the budget? Now, to be honest, I don't know anything about the Clam Falls Flowage, so you're going to have to educate me as well.
I am very excited that I think we're going to have a topic with bipartisan agreement.
What?
I think there's broad agreement in the northern Polk County area, southern Burnett County, including among, liberals, conservatives, lakefront owners, members of tribes, all kinds of different user groups are in support of figuring out a way to save that dam. And the reason is because that dam supports a flowage that has wild rice and great birding opportunities, great nature opportunities. It's surrounded by about 75%, I think, of DNR land. So when you're up there, it can be, I've heard somebody describe it as almost like a Boundary Waters type experience. You'd hate it, Ben. You'd detest it. I
Sounds
mean,
just
it's like,
absolutely
it's
terrible.
It's outdoors. You'd hate it. You'd hate every second of it. But most people like it, and it's been there for like 114 years, the dam. It's one of the first hydroelectric dams. It doesn't operate anymore, but it was one of the first hydroelectric dams in the state. And so the problem is that it's old and it needs some repairs, and it's been difficult to find the funding. And in this budget, there's some funding for it for Polk County to take over the dam. I think it's a good thing and I'm not a big guy for spending money on this or that, but that's an important piece of our infrastructure. And I'm excited, and I suspect Patty will agree. I think that's a good bipartisan win for northern Wisconsin.
Patty, please tell me you disagree.
No, actually, I think Ad and I will go ride kayaks together in the Flowage, have a little Bruce green on it.
See, this is why I don't get enough hate mail. You guys agree on too many.
Could you imagine me in a kayak, Ben? It would be awesome. I'd flip it right over. I'd be upside down in the water.
It would have to be. You'd have to do it with the open ones, or I just got this new island floaty that has 2 sofas on it, and it's amazing. So we could with a cooler in the middle. We could hang out there. Oh, anywho, I digressed. The Clam Falls. The Flowage, I had the opportunity to go up there and check it out, and it's one of those things that you see these dams and you don't realize they're privately owned, and then they get kind of lost in the shuffle over time, and it is a needed place. I mean, it's beautiful up there. And, when people talk about taking the dams down, there's so many negative impacts that will happen in the long term. You really have to make a balanced decision. And I think getting funding to help Polk County maintain this area is really important. It's not only important to the people who have property up there, but it's important to tourism. There's multiple different layers that this would negatively impact if we didn't do it. So I think that this is something that does go through. I've talked to the folks up there a lot. And I know I tried working on it when I was up in the Senate. I know Adam has worked on helping them. And I mean, sometimes we just have to do what's right. And this here is a very important topic for local economics. And we just can't let this go away.
Sure. Well, going back to the kayaks, there is literally no purpose for those things. Why would anybody do that? Why? If you're on the lake and you want to enjoy it, then get a boat, right? I mean, I have to sit in this thing. I have to, exercise, and I don't go very far, very fast. I mean, why would I want to pay? Why do I want to pay to reduce the quality of my life? Just get a boat. Just saying. All right, we're moving on to the next topic here, and that is this is from Patty. What does poverty look like in your community?
So this was, I think, an interesting exercise. I had met someone a couple of weeks ago. His name's Tim Gill. He's a professional basketball player from Minneapolis. He plays in Argentina, I believe. And we were comparing stories. And, I will honestly tell you, full disclosure, I usually always say I was raised on a farm and we were poor because that's what I always thought. And he talked about him growing up in Minneapolis and in a high rise and low income, having no food, being charged with felonies at a young age. Dad was in prison, and again, no food, no heat, it was really sad. So then I started to reflect on my own story, and I'm like, I was raised on a farm, and when we were hungry, my dad just shot a cow. I mean, and
shot a cow. Went outside and shot a cow.
And he just kind of looked at me like I was like this crazy person. And I said, and we had a huge garden, and we had quarts and quarts and quarts of vegetables in our basement, and we had corn and apples and applesauce and all this here stuff in our basement. And he looked at me and he said, "So you had a grocery store in your house?" And I was like, "No, I never even thought about it," but it was like true, you know. So then I had to really, you know, kind of dig deep, because I know that we have poverty in our communities, but I don't know what it looks like. You know, what is it? And, you know, is it like the United Way has that ACEs thing where the or the Alice guidelines, where they talk about, you know, income restraint, and even though you have money, you're not able to live past paycheck. What does it look like? Is it the fact that you don't have a car? I mean, what is it? And I think we have to look at our communities and see what poverty actually looks like in our community before we judge other people and what their poverty looks like, because it's two totally different things, you know. And it's like, even living up here, people have freezers full of venison and wild turkey and all these things, and we don't even think twice about people that don't have the opportunities that we have. So that's what does poverty look like in your community?
Yeah, that's a great question. And then before you go in there, I want to go back to what you had said, Patty, about the garden. We grew up not poor. I mean, somebody told me when I was 16 or 17 that we're poor, and I didn't know it, right? Dad worked 3 jobs. Mom was that was like the legit pioneer stay-at-home mothers and housewives. We had a garden, not because we like fresh vegetables. It's cheaper than going to the store. And then we'd freeze everything. We had pigs just so then we could, that was the meat. So we're always making sausages. That was just normal growing up. We pinched every penny, and that's just kind of the way it was. And as far as what does poverty look like, that is a great question about in our communities, because obviously it's widely different in, Haiti. What does poverty look like there versus what does it look like at, in Adamstown? I mean, it's got to be a huge difference. I mean, what are the fundamentals here? Jobs, education, and access to food, so food, jobs, and education. Those have to be like the 3 basics of getting out of poverty. But most people around here probably have a job, or could, if they wanted to, have access to food, and have had an education. So what does that look like for us, Adam?
It is an interesting topic. I've thought about it a lot over the years, mostly in terms of kind of this race issue that we have, because I'm firmly convinced that the rural poor have more in common with the urban poor than the rural poor have in common with white rich people. And the only reason that we seem to have this sort of division between rural poor and urban poor is because of race, and it's because of race-baiting asshole politicians who believe that they should gain some ground out of pitting one group against another. And it's totally unfortunate. We should be way past this by now. And I lay the blame squarely at the feet of politicians of both parties who continue to divide us by race and by gender. And instead of looking at the rural poor and the urban poor and saying, boy, these people have a lot in common, a lot of stuff that's the same. How can we have a universal fix to it, and stop looking at it through the lens of, how do I get reelected in 2 years by pitting this race group against that race group?
Sure. Before we go on, Patty, I'd love to get your response to that. But I want to, you were both in the legislature. You both had, you had a 2-year term. Patty, that's a 4-year term, but it was, how long were you in? 3 years?
3 years, yeah. Sure. Long enough to get out.
Did you, either of you're looking back at this now, and these are the things like Adam that you're saying, is this retrospective, or do you also look back and go, I was maybe guilty of that too, in terms of looking at 2 years at a time? Patty, you can start first. I mean, you had an election coming up. Obviously, it's a sensitive topic, how you got in the first time. But you had to then run again. Did you find yourself maybe in those? And I understand maybe it's an uncomfortable question, but did you find yourself thinking about the election?
I think I think Adam is 100% right on this, and it's really easy and convenient to pit race against each other, and instead of the actual issue at hand on what's going on, and that would be a much harder political campaign to run if you actually ran on that and actually engaged people in real topics, and around here it would be the indigenous population, and really sitting down and talking about what's going on in the with the tribes. What is actually, what is the negative impact? What is the positive impact? Why is it that drugs are so rampant? What is about the culture? Literally, when I was growing up, we were still, when I was a child, it was before you guys' time, we were still, as a society, ripping children out of their parents' arms and sending them to little churches, to be better humans and cut their hair off. So the cultural things that we did as a society, we haven't really acknowledged the mistakes of the past, but we can decide to change that and have really good, vibrant conversations so that we can all learn how to coexist in the future. Because I think there's room for that, and poverty plays a huge piece to that, and honesty.
Yeah. Adam, since Patty didn't answer my question, would you like to answer my question? Does that stuff actually, I know we're kind of making light of that, but does that stuff, did it, when you look back now, think, boy, maybe that was a role? And I'm not necessarily talking about poverty here or any decisions you made specifically about that topic, but did that come into play when you look back at it now?
I suppose a little bit, it always does. I always was of the opinion that if you vote for the other guy, I really don't care. I have a real job. And so I would tell constituents that when they were angry at me for this or that, and then they would be angry at me because I didn't listen to them. And I would just explain to them that I didn't have to listen to them because I got elected and they didn't. And if they wanted the job, then they should run for it. And they didn't like that. And so, politics always comes into play, right? It's a prioritization of what you're looking at. But I didn't care if I had the job that much. And so maybe I was in a little bit of a different position than others. And I think Patty's the same way. I don't think she cared if she had a real job. So she didn't care that much. And I didn't see a lot of politics out of Patty.
I didn't either. And that's what I was going to comment on, was that I don't recall. Now, I came in, we started Dreadwire in 2015. That was kind of the tail end of yours, Adam, but I never noticed any of that. And in 3 years, outside of her press releases, from every politician, outside of that, when she does her guest columns, she had great, interesting points of view. I feel like we're talking like she's not around right now. You're right there. But no, I never got that from her either, and any of the stuff that she had done. So, Patty, any response to any of this before we move on to our last topic?
Yeah, well, I think, I love to learn. And sometimes I forgot that I was in politics. I forgot that I was a senator, and I would love to meet other people that were different than me to learn about them and their culture. So, because I knew that even though it was a very small amount of population here, I knew those people lived here. Yeah. So whatever I could do to be a better representative to learn about everybody is what I would do. It's real easy to just represent the people that we have a shared sense of place or being. But learning how to engage and learning about other people takes time, energy, and you might develop new relationships. And that's what I learned being in the Senate. So I enjoyed that piece to, talking to other people from different cultures and different ways of life from mine. Because my kids tell me all the time, especially my son that's in the Navy, he's like, Mom, you have no idea, we're not normal. We are not normal. The fact that you and Dad have been married for 42 years. Right. The fact that we don't have family members that are struggling with addiction, that we don't have, we're not normal. So stop telling us we're normal. We're weird. And
pretty much.
I agree. You are weird, Patty.
Yeah.
But
are.
I mean, when you think about it from that perspective, if you're raised in an environment that you think is normal and it's not, you have a different perspective on what life is for everybody else. You just think it's like yours. And,
Right.
come to realize that everybody just goes out and shoots a cow and eats it. I just thought everybody did that.
Yeah, I'm pretty soon. I think I'm gonna start becoming, not the normal, right? White, God-fearing, heterosexual. I'm pretty much gonna be we're gonna be the minority, which that's fine with me. I don't care. All right, so let's move on to the last one, and that is Adam. For you, is the level of education funding too low?
No, it's not too low. I don't think. Patty will disagree with this, I think.
Yes.
In some respects, it's too high. We have schools that were closed for an entire year, and they were closed for an entire year because their unions demanded it. Now, that's not around here. It's in mostly larger cities, and so if I was king for a day, I would tell those schools, you couldn't figure out how to teach your kids for an entire year. You couldn't have them in school. Guess what? Your funding is cut, and the funding is going to those schools that did figure out how to bring their kids into school and educate them. That's what I would do. And there has been some of that in the finance committee and in the budget, and a little bit of that. But I just feel like we are paying a ton of money for education, and we ought to expect results. And so if you look at some of our school districts that are really poorly performing, they're some of the highest per pupil money that we spend as well. So to a large degree, I'm not sure that it's money. I think a lot of it has to do with the way that they're implementing their practices. So I don't think it's too low, and in some districts, I think it's actually too high.
Well, that would be if you were still in office. I just wrote down the headline that I would totally do. Representative Jarko says education funding too high. Patty, your thoughts? Is education funding too low? Too low or too high? Where is it right now?
I don't think we invest enough in education because we're investing in multiple systems. We have a voucher system that taxpayers pay for. We have our public school education system that we pay for, and that's not how it was set up. And it has made things really complicated. And then when you look at our public schools can't turn away students, especially special needs students. And that's where a lot of the expense comes from in special ed, and it's very underfunded. And special ed, as we move forward, it's getting more and more complicated. And, one high need student can cost a school district hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on what their special needs are. And most of that money now comes out of the general fund. So if it comes out of the general fund, that's education that's not going to actual classroom learning. So I think when we look at public education, we're looking at, yes, we look at scores and everything. And of course, Wisconsin, when it comes to our African American population, has the lowest literacy score in the nation, which is horrible. And there has to be a reason for that. We went from one of the top scores to the lowest in the last 10 years. So that's an embarrassment, and we have to look at what the problem is there. But special education and now is a huge piece to that. And most private schools don't take students that have special needs. So as more and more people go to voucher schools, the population of special ed kids keeps growing in the public schools, the needs keep increasing. And that's above and beyond the regular keeping the doors open of the building. Those costs never go away. As a matter of fact, they increase over time. So it's the investment to education is an investment in the future, no matter where the students' abilities are. And if we're not willing to invest in that, then why do we think that they're going to stay here to take care of us oldies when we get older? So we invest in 13 years in some pre-K into education. And the fact that we're losing students and college students to other communities in other states is ridiculous. We're not using that investment wisely to keep folks here, and they're moving away like crazy. So I think the more we can, reasonable, not unreasonable, reasonable investments in education is a smart investment to the future.
Sure. Adam?
I sense a deal in the making here, Patty. I'll make you a deal. If we can fully fund the voucher program, and and we can define what that is. Say 500% of poverty is then eligible for a voucher, then I will be for putting more money into special education, an equal amount. Do we have a deal?
Well, yeah, but who the hell's going to listen to us?
No?
If we ruled the world, it would be a better world, but no one listens to us.
Okay, I'm listening. And Patty, is that a deal? Would you take that deal? Or would you at least be very interested in learning more about that deal?
Yeah, I would be open to learning more about it. Because
so that's a no.
I would be. Teacher schools around here are very limited. I don't know what that means. So the voucher schools would be more not in our area. So how would that impact our area? That's kind of my biggest thing. I feel like, we don't, the whole discussion about voucher schools is really a good discussion, but I don't know what the voucher schools around, we don't have any. So in our direct area.
No, that's not true.
We did.
No, we have one in Osceola that is growing huge numbers. Somerset has one. New Richmond has one. We have some big private schools that are now getting in the voucher program, but the number of kids that are eligible for it are limited because of the income caps.
Sure.
Yeah, and that. So private Christian schools, but I'm talking like the voucher, the academies that don't have actual accountability. There are kids that have been going to voucher schools that have been just totally robbed of their education because they didn't follow through with accountability, and that has happened a lot. So I think if we're going to have a voucher system, then it has to be fair and equitable and at least meet the minimum standards that our public schools have.
Sure. Adam, response to that?
Yeah, I can agree with that. If we're going to spend public money on anything, there should be metrics and accountability.
Sure.
I agree.
You reminded me of something, so I just quick looked this up on my phone. Patty, you had put on your Facebook page yesterday, it's a graphic here. Wisconsin lawmakers cut nearly all the proposed increase for K-12 education. That's what this graphic is. It's on your page. But you had prefaced it with, are you starting to see a trend here? And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to do gotcha stuff or anything. It just reminded me when you were talking about this. It says the heartless GOP really want people with disabilities to take a backseat to them. That'd be you, Adam. Don't let them fool you. Every person who voted for this voted against people with disabilities. You want to expand on that a little bit, Patty? And then I want to hear Adam's response.
People with disabilities are getting lost in the background all the time, and it's through bad policy. It's through, and we talk about our kids in school and educational opportunities and disability, but if you have to take the funding from your general fund to meet the needs of special ed kids, you're taking funding from somewhere else, and it's not right. And I stand by that. When it comes to people with disabilities, heartless. Mm-hmm.
Adam, be careful.
Well, yeah.
At this point, I think you should say anything.
I think calling people like Gay and Rob, who I suspect will vote in favor of the budget next week, heartless, is wrong, and it's just not. I mean, anybody that knows these guys knows that they're not heartless. We might have a slightly different policy view or a slightly different view on how much general fund funding should go to this place or that place, but I think heartless is inaccurate. Let's put it that way.
I find it so funny that my friends on friends on the other side who spent the whole last 5 years telling us we're snowflakes and weak are now all of a sudden the people that hug me because my feelings are hurt. It makes me laugh.
Well, I don't think their feelings will be hurt, but I just don't think that it's true. To be honest with you, I think they have huge hearts, both of them, and most of the people that are voting on these things on both sides, actually, in our legislature. I can't speak to Congress. I don't know what goes on there, but in our legislature on both sides, we have a lot of really good people. We have some really bad people too, but that's the same in every group that you have together. If you have 100 and whatever there is, 32 in the Senate and the Assembly combined, there's probably 100 pretty good people and 30 that are pretty bad.
Yeah. Well, this could be one of those situations where talking about that little, if we have a surplus and we have some extra money, and talking about now education, special education, I think everyone could agree we need to make sure that is taken care of. I don't know anyone that would not agree with that. It's just the question of how to do that. But in a weird way, Adam, I think I get what you're saying about the. I don't know if I can't imagine everyone who looked at this whole, voted for this, looked at this and, before they even decided to look through anything, they just started off with, all right, roll call. Who, wants to take money away from kids with special education? Who hates kids with disabilities? And they're like, I do. All right, great. Let's just sign this and get out of here. I'm pretty sure that's not the motivation behind it. However, I understand what you're saying, Patty, and that it's something that I know I've always been passionate about, individuals with disabilities, especially our kids. Good Lord. And the people that work with those kids on a daily basis, my goodness, give those people raises. Mm-hmm. I got no problem with that.
Right.
That they do. Right. I think, Adam, you have said this about Patty. They do God's work. I mean, geez, that is incredible. The challenges that they face, and to help get these kids education so they can go out into the world as well and function in the world. I don't know anyone who would actually not want to fund that. It's just, I think, the question of how do we do it and how much, right?
Well, there's a $4 billion surplus. That's a start.
Yeah, let's take some of that. I would have zero problem with that. Absolutely zero problem with that. All right, final words. Patty, we'll start with you. Final words.
We got a lot of stuff going on in St. Croix County. On Monday, we have a bridge over 94. There's going to be a Pride moment up there for Pride Month where people will be able to wave their flags in honor of Pride Month. From there's going to be a conversations of the community for people with disabilities at the Hudson Library. And then from there, we go to New Richmond for the filming or the screening of All Boys Aren't Blue, transgender and LGBTQ film screening in Glover Park. And then on Tuesday, we're having a countywide feminine hygiene product gathering for women and girls who don't have access to feminine hygiene products. So we have 4 spots in St. Croix County where we'll be collecting feminine hygiene products and then bringing them to local churches and food shelves to make sure that girls and women have access. And lack of these products are the number one reason girls don't go to school. So when you think about it, why is it that we have free toilet paper in public bathrooms, free paper towels in public bathrooms to deal with body functions we have no control over, but we don't have free feminine hygiene products? So there you go. Support our drive.
That'd probably be because it'd be sexist, Patty. I don't need those, and I don't want my taxpayer dollars if I'm going to something that I don't use.
I can hear it now.
I'm kidding. And by the way, I just learned a new word this weekend, autosexual. Never heard that one before. Google it. It's quite interesting. Adam, final words.
Buy guns and ammo and lots of it.
Oh, God.
Okay. Sounds great. Hey guys, thanks so much for doing this. It's been great. Thank you. We'll see you guys next month. You've been watching Politically Speaking with Adam and Patty, presented by Kirkpatrick Law Offices. Attorney Matthew Kirkpatrick provides experienced, professional, efficient, and effective representation in criminal defense, collections, and other legal areas. For more information, you can find him on Kirkpatrick or on Facebook at Kirkpatrick Law Offices, or just check him out on his website, mzklawyer.com. For Adam Jarko, and Patty Shockner, I'm Ben Dryden saying thank you for watching, and we'll see you next month. Until then, stay safe, stay positive, and as always, have a blessed day. Thanks, guys.